The old Willowridge Asylum sat at the end of an overgrown path, shrouded in thick mist and hidden from the rest of the world. Built in the early 1900s, it was once a beacon of hope for those suffering from mental illnesses, but over the years, it had gained a reputation for unspeakable horrors. Whispers spread through town about the brutal treatments and cruel experiments that were carried out in the name of science. Patients who were admitted to Willowridge rarely came out. And those who did were forever changed, haunted by something far worse than the illnesses they came in with. By the 1950s, the asylum had been shut down, its doors sealed and windows boarded up. The once grand building, with its tall spires and Gothic arches, had been abandoned for decades. But the stories didn't die. Townsfolk would sometimes see lights flickering in the windows, hear distant screams carried on the wind, or see shadowy figures wandering the grounds. No one dared to step foot inside until now. It was a cold autumn evening when a group of thrill-seekers decided to venture into the asylum. They were 5 in total: Jason, the fearless leader; Mia, the skeptic; Alex, the tech geek with a knack for capturing EVP, electronic voice phenomena; Lily, the history buff fascinated by the asylum's dark past; and Mark, the quiet one who rarely spoke but always seemed to see more than the rest. Armed with flashlights, a couple of cameras, and their phones, they pushed through the rusty, creaking gates and approached the main entrance. The massive wooden doors were slightly ajar, as if welcoming them in. With a deep breath, Jason pushed them open, and they were immediately greeted by a rush of cold, stale air that smelled of mildew and decay. The entrance hall was enormous, lined with peeling wallpaper and broken chandeliers hanging precariously from the ceiling. An old reception desk sat in the corner, its surface covered in a thick layer of dust. Behind it, a long hallway stretched out into darkness. "Are we really doing this?" Mia asked, her voice wavering slightly. "Of course we are," Jason replied. "We'll be in and out in an hour. Just enough to get some good footage and prove everyone wrong." They made their way deeper into the asylum, their flashlights casting eerie shadows on the walls. Each step echoed through the empty corridors, disturbing the silence that had enveloped the place for decades. As they passed door after door, they caught glimpses of the decaying remnants of the asylum's past patient rooms, with rusted bed frames, abandoned wheelchairs, and water-stained files strewn across the floor. The group paused at a door labeled Ward C. According to the records, Ward C was where the most dangerous patients were kept. Patients who were beyond help. Patients who had to be restrained and kept in solitary confinement. "Let's check it out," Lily suggested, her curiosity piqued. Jason nodded and pushed the door open. It led to a narrow hallway lined with small, barred cells. The air was even colder here, and a palpable sense of dread seemed to hang in the atmosphere. They moved cautiously, their eyes darting around nervously. It was then that Alex's camera began to glitch. "Hey, what's going on?" he muttered, tapping the screen. The static gave way to a brief image of a woman's face, pale and gaunt, staring directly at the camera before disappearing. Alex froze, his heart racing. "Did you see that?" he whispered, his voice trembling. "See what?" Mark asked. Alex replayed the footage, but the image was gone. The camera showed only the empty hallway. Everyone exchanged uneasy glances but brushed it off as a malfunction. Continuing down the hallway, they stopped at the last cell. The door was slightly ajar, and inside, they found an old journal lying on the floor. It was filled with illegible scrawls, desperate pleas, and disturbing drawings of faceless figures. But one entry caught their attention. "They come at night. They whisper. They feed on fear. I'm not alone here. They watch me." Lily shivered as she read it aloud. "What does that even mean?" "Let's just keep moving," Jason said, though his voice lacked its usual confidence. They moved to the lower levels of the asylum, where the infamous treatment rooms were located. This was where the most horrifying experiments took place: lobotomies, electroshock therapy, and worse. The walls here were lined with old, rusted equipment and tables stained with dark patches that no one dared to inspect too closely. As they reached one of the larger rooms, Mia suddenly froze. "Did anyone else hear that?" she asked, turning her head to the side. "Hear what?" Jason asked. A voice. "I swear I heard someone whispering." They all fell silent, straining to hear. And then it came a faint, almost imperceptible whisper, like the sound of dry leaves rustling in the wind. But it was no wind. The voice was coming from somewhere deep within the room. They turned their flashlights towards the far corner, and there, huddled against the wall, was a figure. It was a woman, her back facing them. She wore an old hospital gown, and her hair was long and tangled. The group froze, staring at her in shock. "Hello?" Jason called out tentatively. The woman didn't move. Slowly, she began to hum a low, haunting melody that sent chills down their spines. Without warning, she twisted her head around, her face contorted into a grotesque smile, eyes wide with madness. And then, she screamed. The sound was deafening, filling the room with an unearthly shriek that seemed to reverberate through the very walls. The lights of their flashlights flickered wildly, and then everything went dark. Panic set in. Jason yelled for everyone to get out, but the room seemed to stretch endlessly, twisting and distorting around them. Shadows moved, whispering their names. Hands reached out from the darkness, clawing at them, pulling them deeper into the abyss. One by one, they disappeared. Jason was the last one left. He stumbled through the corridors, desperately trying to find his way out. The whispers grew louder, and he could feel someone following him. He burst into the entrance hall, heart pounding, and turned around. Standing at the top of the stairs was the woman, her head cocked to the side, smiling that twisted smile. But she wasn't alone. Behind her, dozens of shadowy figures emerged, patients, doctors, all trapped in their eternal torment. "We've been waiting for you," the woman whispered, her voice echoing through the hall. Jason backed away, but before he could reach the door, the lights flickered once more, and the asylum fell silent. Months passed, and the group was never heard from again. The police found their abandoned equipment, but no trace of the thrill-seekers. The footage recovered from Alex's camera showed only darkness, punctuated by faint whispers and flashes of ghostly faces. But in the last frame, just before the camera cut out, a single message appeared, scrawled in blood-red letters. "They whisper. They watch. And they never let you leave." The Willowridge Asylum remains abandoned to this day, but if you stand outside its gates on a quiet night, you can still hear the whispers of the forgotten souls who are trapped within. And if you listen closely, you might even hear them calling your name.